Revealed, she almost gave up on love until the CEO's daughter discovered a hidden connection. Jenna's heart was heavy as she poured another cup of coffee at the Maplewood diner. The smell of frying bacon filled the air, mixing with the chatter of regulars, but her mind was elsewhere. At 30, life felt like an uphill battle. Between her shifts at the diner and her late nights at the grocery store, she hardly found time to care for herself, let alone dream about love. Every joy felt like a distant memory, smothered by bills and her father's fading health. The weight pressed down on her like a thick fog, and sometimes, she wondered if she would ever find a way out of this town, a way out of this life. Across town, Ava pulled at the seams of her designer dress, her polished smile masking the tempest within. At 27, the daughter of the CEO had everything except what she longed for most, connection. Dressed to the nines for her father's gala, the laughter and cheers around her echoed hollow. Each compliment that fluttered her way felt like a reminder that she was trapped in a gilded cage, hosted within the walls of superficiality. The moment she stumbled into Jenna, it felt as if the universe had intervened. Coffee splashed across the table and gasps erupted. Ava's perfect world collided with Jenna's reality, and for a brief moment, Jenna saw something in Ava's eyes, a glimpse of understanding, maybe even longing. But they were worlds apart. Jenna, an exhausted caretaker, and Ava, a frustrated heiress. Reluctantly, a plan began to take shape, a community project designed to bridge their differences and breathe life back into Maplewood, a task driven by desperation and hope. As they worked together, their paths began to intertwine. Jenna's laughter floated in the air, bringing a spark to Ava's sterile existence. They shared stories over late-night work sessions, revealing their vulnerabilities. Jenna's dreams of love emerged slowly, tangled in her burdens, while Ava confided her fears of disappointing everyone around her. They were two women bound by loneliness, held captive by the role society placed on them. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Underneath the budding friendship, a secret simmered. One evening, as Jenna sifted through her father's old war medals, she stumbled upon a faded photograph of her father with a man in uniform. A tragic twist unraveled as she learned that her father had saved Ava's grandfather during a fierce battle. Torn between the past and present, their connection felt like the strands of destiny weaving them together but also ripping them apart. Confrontation loomed like a storm cloud over Maplewood. Jenna faced unspoken prejudices when Ava's father made a disparaging remark about blue-collar workers, killing the intimate atmosphere they tried to build. With her heart racing, Jenna had never felt so exposed, feeling the burden of her father's legacy weigh heavily on her chest. Underneath the smiles and hidden fears, something powerful struggled to take flight. Would Jenna risk it all for this friendship blooming against all odds? Or would societal divisions throttle the hope they fought for? As the world around them held its breath, Jenna was at a crossroads, standing on the brink of love where dreams of acceptance could either blossom or fade away. Jenna stood in the diner's kitchen, her hands trembling slightly while she plated up an order of pancakes. The clatter of dishes and the low hum of conversation enveloped her, but her mind was elsewhere. Ava's father's words played on a loop in her head, igniting old insecurities. How could she possibly bridge the gap between their worlds? That evening, after her shift, Jenna pulled on her worn-out sneakers and walked home through dimly lit streets. The flickering streetlights cast an eerie glow, further darkening her mood. Somewhere inside, she felt a flicker of anger and sadness, swaying back and forth like a pendulum. Why should Ava's father define her worth? She thought about Ava and the connection they had forged over late-night discussions filled with laughter and tears. Couldn't they be more than the label society had placed on them? Meanwhile, at the other end of town, Ava found herself staring at the ornate mirror in her bedroom. The gala dress sparkled in the low light, but it felt too heavy to wear again. At that moment, she truly understood what it meant to feel trapped. Surrounded by luxury yet devoid of genuine love, she needed to break free. The idea of teaming up with Jenna filled her with excitement. They had a chance to create something meaningful, something that could uplift their community and their fractured spirits. A plan formed in her mind as she picked up her phone, scrolling to Jenna's contact. She hesitated, her finger hovering over the call button. Would Jenna see past the wealth that defined her? Would she still want to be friends? They had started to cultivate a friendship, but the fallout from her father's comments loomed large. With a deep breath, she tapped the screen, and the phone began to ring. "Hey, Jenna." "It's me," Ava said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I was just thinking about you," Jenna replied, surprise lacing her words. "I know this might sound crazy, but what if we do a fundraiser? Something for the community? We could really involve people and maybe even change some minds." Ava's excitement rang clear. Silence hung for a moment on the line. Jenna realized this wasn't just about fixing a community project, it was about fixing something within herself. "You mean it? Are you sure your dad wouldn't?" "Forget what my dad thinks. This is about us, Jenna. We have something special, and I won't let our friendship be overshadowed by that." Jenna felt a warmth flood her chest, but with it came uncertainty. Their plans would draw attention, and with that, scrutiny. What if it blows up in our faces? What if we don't have enough support? That's why we start small. We'll show them what real connection looks like. That night, they mapped out ideas over the phone. Jennifer's laughter bubbled through the line, infecting Ava with courage as they brainstormed ways to involve their communities. Time slipped away as they discussed fundraisers, neighborhood picnics, and art shows. Slowly, the weight of doubt began to lift, replaced by a burgeoning hope. As the days passed, Jenna and Ava set their vision into motion. The town hall meeting loomed on the horizon, a platform that could either herald victory or reveal their insecurities. Together, they worked late into the nights, pouring their energy into the campaign. Still, a nagging question echoed in Jenna's mind: what would happen when the community learned of their father's intertwined past? With every step, they pushed against the expectations, but would Maplewood ever be ready for what they were about to unleash? The clock was ticking down to the pivotal meeting day, and Jenna's heart raced with anticipation and fear. Would their dream transform the community, or would they find themselves suffocated by the very walls they sought to tear down? The moment of truth was approaching fast and neither of them could escape its grip. Jenna woke up the morning of the town hall meeting with a pit in her stomach. Sunlight streamed through her window, but it felt dim and cloudy in her heart. Today was the day they would lay it all out on the table. The risks, the hopes, the truth. She sat on the edge of her bed, her fingers brushing the covers, wishing she could just stay there, cocooned from the world. After a quick breakfast, she slipped on her favorite jeans and a plain t-shirt. A touch of lipstick felt bold on her lips, an armor against the opinions she'd already felt creeping in. Was she really ready to stand up to her doubts? She took a deep breath, reminding herself of their late-night conversations, the laughter they shared, and the strength she felt whenever Ava was by her side. Across town, Ava was buzzing with a different kind of energy. She flung open her closet door, searching for the perfect outfit that would send a message. She wanted to look confident, but it wasn't just about appearance. It was a statement that she was stepping out of her father's shadow. But the weight of his expectations pressed heavily on her chest. Would wearing her heart on her sleeve be enough to convince the town to embrace change? As she admired herself in the mirror, she wondered if Jenna would be proud. The clock ticked away minutes and nerves as they made their way to the town hall, a building that had seen far too many discussions go unnoticed and unresolved. The atmosphere buzzed, a mix of anticipation and skepticism. Jenna and Ava exchanged glances before parting ways, Ava joining her father and his associates, while Jenna slipped into the crowd of locals. Jenna's heart raced as she stood at the back of the room, surrounded by the people she had known all her life. The mayor welcomed everyone and spoke of progress, but his words felt empty in her ears. She searched for Ava in the sea of faces, her gaze finally catching the hint of blonde hair that seemed to shine with determination. As Ava took the stage, Jenna's breath hitched. She stood tall, her lovely dress swaying slightly as she positioned herself to face their community. "Thank you all for being here," Ava started, her voice strong but tinged with vulnerability. "I stand before you because I see a way for us to come together." The room shifted slightly, murmurs bouncing off the walls. Jenna's heart hammered, a blend of pride and fear swelling inside her. What if this moment fractured their friendship as easily as it forged it? Ava continued, sharing their vision, the fundraiser, the community connection, all the ways their diverse lives could intertwine. With each word, Jenna felt the tide turning. But then came the inevitable questions, the challenges. They were raw, sharp. What about their families? What about the differences between rich and poor? Who do you think you are? A voice rang out from the back, an anger simmering just below the surface. You think money will erase the reality of who you are? Ava faltered, blinking away tears that threatened to spill. But her eyes sparkled with purpose as she met Jenna's gaze across the room. In that shared moment, a silent understanding passed between them. Could they each be brave enough to reveal their truths without fear of harsh judgment? Jenna stepped forward, her pulse racing as her feet carried her towards the front. We're more than our families or our backgrounds. We're friends who believe change is possible. This is our chance to build something bigger than ourselves. The room grew still, the tension palpable. Ava's father stiffened, his expression shifting as he looked between the two girls. It was a stand that could unravel everything or ignite hope. Would they break free or fall back into silence under pressure? The question hung in the air, a fragile thread, just waiting for someone to pull it. What would their community choose? Would they embrace this pivotal moment, or would fear drive them apart once more? The silence in the room lingered, charged with possibility. Jenna felt her words wrap around the spectators like a warm embrace, a plea for understanding. Her heart thudded, each beat reminding her of the stakes involved. The faces before her were a mix of doubt, curiosity, and apprehension. Could they really see what she and Ava envisioned? Ava regained her composure, drawing in a deep breath that steadied her shaking hands. "This isn't just about us," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "It's about everyone in this room. We can break down the walls that separate us. We all want a better future." But a ripple of skepticism coursed through the crowd, voices murmurings of age-old grudges, of barriers too high to climb. Jenna felt the weight of those unspoken fears pressing down. It was one thing for them to feel hopeful, it was another to convince a town steeped in tradition. "Do you really think we can do this?" One resident scoffed, his brows knitted in disbelief. Jenna recognized him, he was the one who for years had resisted any talk of change. "This town thrives on the past. Why should we care about your little fundraiser?" Something snapped inside Jenna. She felt the fire of determination converge within her. "Because we can't keep trading our future for our history. Look around you," she exclaimed, sweeping an arm across the crowd, inviting them to see not the divisions, but the potential. Families are struggling. Kids are losing hope. Isn't that worth fighting for? A hush fell again, and Jenna could almost hear the gears turning in the minds of her fellow townsfolk. She risked a glance at Ava, whose eyes shone with an unprecedented light. It was then Jenna realized they were not just challenging the town's collective mindset, they were also challenging their own insecurities. Ava's father finally broke his stoic silence, his voice booming through the tension. "And what makes you think outsiders can impact what we built here?" he questioned, his tone sharp and defensive. The fabric of tension tightened further, the room holding its breath. Ava instinctively took a step forward, her jaw set in resolve. Because we're just as invested as you are, Dad. We're tired of following traditions that lead us nowhere. We can be better. Her words rang with sincerity, shaking the childhood image of meekness that hung over her. In the audience, a ripple of recognition began to spread. Another voice chimed in, a woman Jenna had known all her life. But what about our differences? Our fears? Can those disappear overnight? No, they can't, Jenna replied, her heart racing as she held the crowd's gaze. But we can start by acknowledging them, and that's a first step. What if we listen to each other, support each other, and most importantly, understand each other? That's how real change happens. The murmurs grew softer as people started nodding slightly. Up front, Jenna could see glimmers of understanding in their eyes, a cautious acceptance of the idea that, perhaps, just maybe, they could forge a new path together. But before she could indulge in hope, a man shouted, "Change always comes with a price. What are we willing to sacrifice for it?" His words hung heavy and profound, sending shivers through the crowd. Would they be able to handle the weight of what Jenna and Ava were suggesting? Was everyone ready to open their hearts when fear had kept them so guarded for so long? As all eyes now turned towards the girls, Jenna felt the enormity of the moment. Could they bear the burden of change, or would the shadows of doubt chase them back into silence? The question pushed them closer to a precipice. Would they take a leap of faith, or hold tight to their fears? The town hall buzzed with anticipation, the future waiting anxiously in the balance. The air felt thick, a mixture of tension and expectation hanging just above the crowd like a heavy fog. Jenna's chest tightened, and for a fleeting moment, she worried that they might not be ready, that the weight of the changes they desired might crush any flicker of hope before it could catch fire. But then she caught sight of Ava's determined face, the spark in her eyes rekindling her own resolve. "Every town has its scars," Jenna said, feeling something deep inside her shift. "But every scar tells a story. A story of survival and growth. We stand here today with the chance to write a new chapter, one of unity." Each word she spoke seemed to ripple through the hall. Ava stepped closer, mirroring Jenna's fierce passion. "This isn't just about money or events. This is about us, together. Every barrier we break, we build bridges instead." The murmured questions shifted into whispers of curiosity. A few faces softened, crumpling the hardness Jenna had seen moments earlier. It was a crack in the armor, a glimpse of the possibility that lay within their hearts. Together? It was a younger voice, a teenager named Sam, who had faced his share of doubts within this small town. He stood up, his expression earnest. "How do we trust each other if the past still haunts us?" Jenna felt gratitude blooming at his vulnerability. "Trust is built, Sam, not given. We start by talking, truly talking," she responded. "By sharing our stories, not just listening to the noise." A silence swept over the crowd, and Jenna could see different emotions battling for dominance: fear, hope, and something deeper, an undeniable longing for change. Ava piped in, her voice strong. "My dad, he taught me that every conflict starts with misunderstanding. What if we treated our fears as lessons instead of barriers? Let us bring our experiences to the table." Jenna could see Ava's father shifting in his seat, his expression now etched with contemplation. She wondered if perhaps these words would reach him, would resonate as they aimed for honesty against the resistance he embodied. The older man's brow furrowed deeper. And what if those experiences clash? He challenged, his concern palpable. What happens when your new ideas disrupt the balance we've managed to maintain? There it was again. The tension curling to a tight knot. The way Jenna's heart raced told her this was crucial, their choice to engage or retreat hung in the balance. "If we don't try, we've already lost," Jenna said, sealing her voice with resolve. Change doesn't come by keeping things stagnant. It comes when we embrace the uncomfortable, the messy parts of ourselves. A new balance doesn't erase the past, it builds upon it. A few heads nodded, caught in a wave of newfound curiosity and possibility. But then an older woman, whose face had been a stone mask since the beginning, broke through the hesitation. That's easy to say. But who pays for it when the dust settles? Who is left standing when the storm passes? Every heartbeat echoed in the room as they held their breath, waiting for an answer. Jenna looked into the crowd, trying to catch glimmers of understanding in their expressions. What if we all do? She said slowly, feeling the weight of her words. What if we stand together and share the cost? Not just with money but with our time, our trust, and our willingness to let go of grudges? A moment hung in the air, pregnant with anxiety but bursting with possibility. The townspeople exchanged glances, contemplating the offer. As whispers grew around the room, unspoken fears began to simmer beneath the camaraderie that flickered to life. Would they truly come together, or would they remain chained to their doubts? Those thoughts crowded Jenna's mind along with an urgency to spark action. Let us start now, Ava said, her voice climbing with a fresh surge of hope. Let us share our stories, together. But just as they were starting to feel momentum, a figure stood in the back, a familiar face that sent a wave of nervousness coursing through Jenna. Jake, her childhood friend, yet now a stranger in many ways, watched solemnly. His presence felt electric, rekindling memories of laughter and shared childhood dreams. But would those memories forge a connection, or would they draw lines between them now? The crowd shifted again, eyes darting toward him, and Jenna could sense the stakes rising higher. Would Jake's voice add weight to their cause, or would it derail the fragile hope that had only just begun to take root? Jake's gaze was steady as he looked around the room, aware of the eyes upon him. Eyes that once held warmth and laughter now looked in confusion and expectation. Jenna's heart raced, memories flooding her bike rides down the old dirt road, long summer nights spent sharing secrets under the stars, and that day they promised to never fall apart. Jenna, he finally spoke, his voice breaking the awkward silence, sending a shiver through her. The letters of his name felt almost like a lifeline, something tangible in the midst of the chaos around them. What are you doing here? Jenna managed, a mix of disbelief and hope swirling within her. Would he pick up the thread they had once woven so tightly together, or was he here to sever it completely? I came to see what you were fighting for, he said, taking a step forward. Each movement felt deliberate, like he was waiting through the moment. I didn't believe you could inspire anyone, it was just always you and me with our dreams. A smattering of murmurs rose from the crowd as they listened in. It's not just about me anymore, Jenna replied, her voice steadier than her heart. It's about all of us. We can't go back to the way things were. Why not? Jake's brows knitted in confusion, the boy she once knew sparking glimpses through the walls he had built. What's wrong with keeping things the same? At least we know what to expect. His words hung in the air like the remnants of an argument they had never resolved. Because she paused, searching for the right words. What we expect is never enough. It's about growing, moving forward. Don't you want more than just surviving? He opened his mouth to speak, but Ava stepped in, sensing the tension. Jake, what if you shared your story? You know, the one that brought you back? Her enthusiasm threaded through the moments of silence. We need to hear it. The crowd turned their attention back to him, the change in focus palpable. Jake looked at Jenna once more, and for a split second, the space between them felt electric, charged with a past that both haunted and inspired. Fine, he relented, drawing a deep breath. But I'll tell it as it is. I've felt lost. The vulnerability in Jake's voice startled Jenna. I've seen how fear of change can shackle us tighter than any rope. I don't want to lose what we built, but I also can't ignore that something has to change. The faces around them softened, sensing a flicker of honesty. There it was, the connection breaking through the barriers, like light shining through cracks in a darkened room. Jenna felt the air thicken with understanding. Everyone had scars, and Jake's were laid bare now. If he could share his pain, maybe others would find the courage to break their silence. "That's right!" shouted Sam from the back, his youthful energy sparking a shared resolve among the attendees. "Let us all share what's been holding us back. If we want change, we have to risk being vulnerable." Jenna looked around and saw the faces of her neighbors, different but so much the same. They were no longer just echoes of the past but seekers of hope. "We do this together," Ava chimed in, pulse racing with excitement. "One story at a time." As people began to rise, moving past their fears, Jenna's heart raced with exhilaration. They were ready to start weaving a new tapestry, lessons from their history and dreams for their future. But just then, a sudden noise echoed from the back of the hall, a loud crash followed by an unsettling hush. Eyes widened, and the energy shifted in an instant, flicking back to worry. In that breath, Jenna felt a jolt of panic surge through her. What now? Would this fragile moment of hope fracture under the weight of whatever was about to unfold? The crash reverberated through the hall, causing everyone to hold their breath. Jenna's heart pounded in her chest, and a chill ran down her spine. The sudden shift from hope to fear felt like stepping from sunlight into shadow. Jake's face turned pale, and Ava's hand gripped Jenna's arm, both waiting for the dust to settle. When a figure emerged from the cloud of panic, it wasn't just the noise that shattered their moment, it was a person. Tom, Jenna's neighbor, stumbled into view, his face flushed and eyes wide. "Are you okay?" Jenna called out, rushing toward him. "Yeah, I just tripped over a chair," Tom said, brushing himself off. But his nervous laugh didn't quite mask the tension that hung in the air. He looked around and realized how deeply everyone was focused on Jake. "Sorry about that." Didn't he mean to interrupt. His laughter trailed off when he saw the concerned faces. "No harm done," Jake said with a small, shaky smile. The crowd relaxed minutely, but the energy was still electric, fragile as spun glass. The moment was not lost, it was simply on pause, waiting for someone to breathe life back into it. Determined to keep the momentum, Jenna stepped forward. "Tom, maybe you could share what you were going to say." She turned to the others, feeling a sense of urgency. They needed to capitalize on this unexpected interruption, to harness it instead of letting it dissipate. Tom hesitated, scratching the back of his head. "Well, honestly, He stumbled on his words and glanced at the expectant faces around him. "I've been struggling with my business. With everything going online, it feels like I'm drowning. It's overwhelming." He took a breath, vulnerability cracking his facade. "Just last week, I almost quit. I thought about giving up." A soft murmur went through the crowd, signifying compassion mingled with shared uncertainty. Jenna's heart went out to him. He wasn't alone, they all had struggles lurking beneath the surface. Jake stepped in, encouraged by Tom's openness. "You're not alone, man. I felt like I was losing myself for a long time." He turned to face the large group, the earlier spark rekindling in his voice. "It's tough admitting our fears. We all have our burdens." As if on cue, a few other hands shot up in the crowd, those who had stood as spectators now eager to share their own stories. Angelica, a single mother Jenna had always admired, stood up with a shaky voice. "I've been afraid to talk about my finances," she admitted. "It's a daily battle trying to make ends meet, and I feel like I'm failing my kids." The words resonated like a common hymn, drawing more people forward to take their turn. Jenna glanced at Jake. Was this the change they had talked about? Was vulnerability truly the bridge to a wider connection? The tension of the room melted into empathy and shared truths. One after another, they spoke about fears, losses, and dreams. Each voice layered over the last, weaving a fabric of unity, a chorus of struggles met with understanding. As the crowd rallied together, Jenna looked around and smiled through the unexpected tears. She felt a warmth growing within. Maybe this was it, the change they were craving. They were not just telling their stories. They were building a community. But then, just as they began to heal, the sound of distant sirens broke through the night air, cutting through the moment like a knife. The concern rippling through the room hinted at something more serious. "What's happening outside?" Ava whispered, narrowing her eyes toward the exit, her heart quickening. Jenna's stomach dropped. Was their shared moment going to get disrupted again? What could possibly emerge next that would challenge the fragile connection they had just begun to forge? Jenna's heart raced as the sirens grew louder, a haunting wail that reflected the unease settling over the room. The openness they had nurtured felt like it could shatter at any moment. She glanced around, searching faces for answers, but all she found were echoes of her own confusion and dread. "Do you think it's serious?" Tom asked, anxiety creeping into his voice. "I don't know," Ava said, her face drawn tight. Maybe it's just a routine check, but Jenna could tell. The urgency in those sirens spoke of something definitively not routine. It felt like a storm gathering. She felt a knot in her stomach, twisting tighter as Jake's gaze met hers, dark intensity swirling in his eyes. The bond they had just started forging hung in balance, poised at the edge of uncertainty. "Let us go see what's happening," Jenna urged, her voice stronger than she felt. She could feel everyone's hesitance but also their willingness to follow her lead. Slowly, they filtered out of the hall and into the cool night air. As they stepped outside, the street was alive with lights flashing blues and reds illuminating the dark sky. A fire truck and an ambulance stood parked awkwardly, illuminated against the muted canvas of night. A small crowd had gathered, whispering in hushed tones, their heads bobbing nervously. "Who do you think needs help?" someone asked, breaking through the anxious murmur, but the query dissolved into faint speculation. Jenna felt a cold chill creep down her spine again. "Maybe we should keep our distance," she whispered to Jake, her instincts pulling her away from the chaos. But the feeling of connection they had just built tethered her there, unwilling to abandon the group. "Look!" Ava pointed, her voice barely audible above the sirens. "Is that Mrs. Davidson?" Jenna squinted through the chaos. She recognized the frail figure of Mrs. Davidson, the elderly woman from down the street, sitting on a stretcher, her face pale and eyes closed. Panic surged through Jenna's veins. The last thing any of them needed was to witness another crisis. "She's always been so strong," Jenna murmured, unconsciously stepping forward. Just as she did, she felt Jake's hand wrap around her wrist, grounding her. "Let the paramedics do their job," he whispered, his voice steady despite the tremors of worry darting through his body. Behind them, the group shifted with nervous energy. Stories had been shared, fears laid bare, but now uncertainty hung in the air again. Jenna's heart ached as she watched the volunteers lean over Mrs. Davidson, urgency warring against the stillness of her frail form. "Why is this happening?" Jenna questioned, more to herself than to Jake. Jake's grip tightened. "Maybe it's a reminder," he offered softly, "that life doesn't wait for us to get back on our feet. We have to face it." That thought echoed within her like a drum, each beat stirring something deep. Maybe Mrs. Davidson's strength wasn't just her own, it was woven within their community too. Just a few moments ago, they had been sharing raw truths and fragile hopes. This sudden wave of reality threatened to wash that away. But then, as if on cue, a paramedic held up a hand, motioning for the crowd to step back further. The sirens began to fade, but the gravity of the moment pressed heavier. What if we don't know how to keep doing this?" Tom broke the silence, his voice trembling as he looked at the scene unfolding. It was the question that lay beneath the surface, unspoken, aching to be voiced. The assembly of people stood on the precipice of despair, but Jenna could feel the spark of their earlier connection flickering. This was not just about fear, it was about solidarity, about community. "Maybe we can find a way," Jenna said, not entirely sure who she was trying to convince. And as she looked around, she saw hesitation turn to resolve. Perhaps this had become more than a moment to share. It was the catalyst they needed to bind them together, no matter how daunting the future seemed. With the reality of their experiences colliding with the urgent need for connection, Jenna felt hope bubbling within again, fragile yet unmistakable. But before she could absorb that feeling, the loud crack of thunder rolled across the sky. A storm was coming, not just to the weather, but to the very core of their gathering. What would they face when the clouds rolled in and the winds picked up? Would their newfound kinship stand the test of that storm? The first drops of rain began to plummet from the sky, splattering against the pavement as if the heavens were mirroring their tension below. Jenna glanced at Jake, whose expression matched her own tumult. The initial shock of Mrs. Davidson's condition faded into something more tangible, an urgent need to unify and confront whatever lay ahead. "Come on," Jenna said, her voice ringing slightly louder than the rumbling storm, as she stepped forward. "We should stick together. If we panic now, it will only make things worse." She pivoted, searching for assurance in her friend's eyes. Ava nodded, her lips trembling. "Right. We can't lose each other now," she said, her voice bolstered by a fresh, shaky resolve. As the rain fell heavier, the crowd swayed like reeds in the wind, uncertainty and fear mixed with the first inklings of determination. The paramedics whisked Mrs. Davidson closer to the ambulance. The fear Jenna felt intensified, yet the sight of Jake standing resolute alongside her sparked something else, a flicker of trust forming between them, stronger than before. Jenna's mind raced. What if this was just the beginning? The storm wasn't just weather, it was life, unpredictable and harsh. But even then, it represented a powerful force of nature, a symbol of transformation. "Let us find somewhere to shelter," Jake suggested, breaking through her spiraling thoughts. "Good idea." Jenna turned to Tom and Ava, motioning them toward the little cafe down the street. It was just a small, quaint place, but it was familiar, filled with the warm glow of lights from inside. Not a single car was parked outside, indicating its emptiness this late hour. Jenna led the way, her pace quick and urgent, forging ahead as trepidation rippled through the group behind her. Rain soaked her hair as they navigated the puddles, the storm an unyielding backdrop to their gathering anxiety. Once inside, the bell above the door chimed softly, and the warmth enveloped them like a long-lost embrace. A few tables were scattered about, but the cafe felt empty. The dim light cast shadows on their anxious faces as they settled into a booth in the back. "I never thought I'd be so happy to be stuck in a rainstorm," Tom joked weakly, trying to lighten the mood. But happiness felt miles away. Jenna took a deep breath, feeling the air heavy with unspoken worries. "What do we do now?" she asked, searching for an anchor in this tumultuous sea of emotions. "We figure it out," Jake said with determination, glancing at each of them. "Together. We'll take turns sharing what scares us the most." Jenna's heart shifted at Jake's suggestion. It wasn't just about the storm or Mrs. Davidson anymore, it was about facing their collective fears. One by one, they could unravel their anxieties, share their burdens, and maybe just maybe find strength they never knew they had. "I'll go first," Ava said, her voice cracking slightly, as she fidgeted with her hands. "I'm scared of losing everything. I felt so secure before tonight, like we could face anything together. But now what if it all just falls apart?" Jenna felt the weight of that fear resonate inside her. Everyone had felt that, and it was a truth they all shared now. The storm outside was nothing compared to this internal tempest brewing amongst them. "I'm terrified of change," Tom added, his voice steadying. "I want to trust our bond, but everything feels so fragile. What if it breaks under pressure?" As each person took a turn revealing their fears, Jenna felt the storm outside rage, echoing the tempest of emotions within. Yet, with every confession, a flicker of hope ignited. The more they shared, the more solid their connection grew, as if binding them against the storm. But just as a sense of unity began to settle in, another loud crack of thunder rumbled outside, reminding them of the ferocity that lay just beyond their fragile sanctuary. What would they do when the storm inside mirrored the chaos outside? Would their honesty withstand the turbulence they could not control? The thunder rolled like a warning, each crack a reminder that the storm outside wasn't as forgiving as the trust they were building inside. Jenna felt a chill creep through the cafe, but as she glanced around at her friends, she recognized a newfound energy in their eyes, a commitment to face both their fears and the chaos enveloping them. "Maybe we don't conquer the storm," Jenna said, her voice gaining momentum. "Maybe we just learn to navigate through it together." She reached across the table, her hand resting on Ava's clasped fingers, a lifeline in a moment of vulnerability. "We face these storms as a community. We can't change the weather, but we can change how we react to it." "I like that," Jake chimed in, nodding appreciatively. "The storm doesn't define us, how we respond does." His sincerity echoed in the small cafe, igniting a flicker of hope. With every shared fear and every supportive word, Jenna felt the pieces of their community beginning to weave together into something stronger, something resilient. A quilt against the tempest, stitching their stories, their struggles, their triumphs into one unified voice. "Okay," Tom said, a spark of determination in his eyes. "What if we see this storm as an opportunity? An opportunity to come together as a town? To support each other?" He glanced out the window, where rain lashed down like a curtain. "I'm in, if you all are." "I'm in." Ava echoed, her voice now steady and sure, the uncertainty melting away like the rain pooling outside. Jenna could feel it resonate through the group like a wave. They were all in this together. She looked around, locking eyes with each of her friends. Their fears didn't disappear, but the weight felt lighter when shared among shoulders willing to bear it. But then another crash of thunder roared, followed by a sudden, intense downpour that battered the cafe's windows. The storm's ferocity grew, but instead of retreating, Jenna felt a flame ignite within her, urging her to rally the others. "We can do this," she said firmly. "Let us use this moment. We can plan our fundraiser tonight. It could be the launch for the change we want to make in Maplewood. Let us show our community that we can stand together, even if it's stormy outside." Ava's eyes shone as she nodded enthusiastically. "We can use the cafe. We can invite everyone to share their stories, mingle, and raise funds. Let us show them that we're stronger united." Tom leaned in, excitement brimming. "And what if we also use this night to tackle those divisions? Let us have an open mic where everyone can share their fears and hopes and a meal for free. We can show that everyone is welcome here, despite their background." The adrenaline surged between them, a collective determination pulsing like electricity. Jenna felt the walls of doubt begin to crumble, replaced by the power of possibility running like an undercurrent beneath their words. As the storm outside raged on, a shift was happening within the cafe. It started as a flicker of light and swelled into a roaring fire of community spirit. Before long, every person inside that cafe contributed their ideas, and laughter intermingled with plans. Each suggestion shared brought them closer, until time felt irrelevant and the storm outside faded into background noise punctuated by rumbles of thunder. "We need to get the word out," Ava shouted, her enthusiasm infectious. "Social media, flyers, anything we can manage. We have to show them we're serious about changing Maplewood." "Let us do this together," Jake added, grabbing his phone to start coordinating their efforts. He seemed changed somehow. The resolute, determined friend from childhood had returned, ready to push beyond the tumult that had once separated him from Jenna. The rain continued to beat against the windows, but it became a comforting rhythm, echoing the building excitement and camaraderie that enveloped them. As if in a protective embrace, they sheltered one another from the storm. The hours slipped away as they finalized plans, brainstorming ideas, and unleashing creativity. Through shared dreams and laughter, their fears transformed into strength. Finally, as the rain began to taper off into a soft drizzle, Jenna felt the air in the cafe shift into something lighter. The world outside seemed washed anew. Before they parted, Jenna stood at the cafe's entrance, glancing back at her friends gathered around the table, fueled by passion and purpose. They had faced storms of doubt and adversity only to emerge stronger. Every connection forged in that little cafe felt like magic, like a promise they were making to each other. "I'm proud of us," she said softly, her heart swelling. "We've found our voices, and we're ready to change this town together." As they stepped back into the night, a sense of calm washed over them. Each raindrop now felt like a baptism, cleansing the past and affirming new beginnings. They had turned their vulnerability into a weapon of hope, armed with the recognition that people could come together, survive the storms, and emerge greater. And with every drop falling gently from the sky, they forged ahead, friendship and courage leading the way. Now was their moment, a signal to Maplewood that change was possible, and it began with love, unity, and the refusal to give up on each other. Jenna smiled, radiant and full of expectation. They were ready for whatever would come next. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us continue this journey together. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans understand the importance of this support for our growing community.